Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Helanie Scott, the founder and CEO of Align4Profit, a leadership development firm dedicated to creating workspaces where everyone profits. With over 25 years in the human capital industry, Helanie has been instrumental in transforming organizational cultures and developing high-performing teams through science-based methodologies and habit-forming strategies. Welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. So take us back to before you started Align4Profit. What was the motivation? What was the inspiration behind starting the company, and what problems were you hoping to solve in the market?
Interesting journey. I owned a model and acting agency in South Africa, hence my accent. And I got called in by corporations to help their senior leaders with sort of presentation skills or marketing skills because they were doing, of course, a lot of communications. And
Yeah.
I discovered as I was working with these executives that they didn't really treat people around them very well. And at the time, I was super young, 21 years old. And at that time, all of the leaders were men, a little bit older. And so I had the courage, I think, to just say, have you thought about doing this instead of that? And they looked at this young kid and didn't really respond much. But obviously, I inspired them enough to go and try this suggestion.
Yeah.
And then they came back and said, actually, this works. So come back to me and be my coach. And
Okay.
so I dove into learning everything I could about leadership. I read just about every book available at the time on leadership, and I used that as my guiding principle to coach and guide them. I really got stuck into what coaching is all about and how to become a great coach. And yes, that's where the journey started. The problem was really that I think most leaders are very focused on driving high performance.
Mm,
But I think the equation is high performance and high engagement. Because if you're alienating people, you only win their hearts and minds and hands for a very short period of time.
I
And
love that.
so I find, thank you, even today, that leaders can fall into these two categories. They're really good at driving high performance or really good at rallying the troops. But it's the rare leader that can do both really well.
100%. And I love that so much. Before I forget, it's interesting that you tripped up into it. You gave somebody this piece of advice, they decided to apply it, and they came back and they're like, "Hey, coach me." And then you're like, "Okay, I'll figure it out." I love that. The high performance plus high engagement piece, that's something. So we talk about the five dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni on here. And it's the trust piece. You have to have the trust in there that creates the healthy conflict, the high engagement, and which leads to the high performance. So I love that so much. Help us understand today. Do you primarily work with executives? Who would you say your ideal client avatar looks like? And how do you love to work with these individuals?
Yes, so although I describe the coaching practice side of my business, and there's a very big other side of my business where I do a lot of leadership development,
Mm,
literally at all levels of the organization.
okay.
So a typical day for me is that I'm in front of a classroom with 20 people in the room. And through my years of experience, I've developed a library of content that I constantly update. It is not theoretical because obviously I've actually used it in about 42 countries in the world.
Wow.
So it's very much culturally nuanced. I use a lot of science in that. But then I focus on storytelling and influencing because
Mhm.
we can always put people in a room and they're going to learn this skill of whatever. Because leadership topics are so wide. They
course.
from influencing skills to conflict resolution skills to communication skills to how do you manage your emotional intelligence and what do you do with those difficult
Mm.
conversations and how do you actually make great decisions. So the topics are wide, but we then have to get people in the room to say, okay, what am I going to do differently based on this? And I think the biggest challenge still in the industry is that people are PowerPoint heavy and they're not heavy on exploration and experimentation. And part of my style is I drive people to accountability and lots of follow up so that people
Mm.
actually can say, hold on a minute, I've actually shifted a behavior permanently for myself.
Mm.
Was the challenge.
I love that you stress the storytelling piece because I was reading a book on marketing called Building a Story Brand, and it talks about how stories were the oldest form of passing down lessons, passing down a mythology, passing down ideas. And when you look back, like humans, we would gather around the fire and we would tell stories. And those stories would say something about us, they would share lessons to people and they stuck. People actually remembered them. But if it's just theory on a PowerPoint, like you were alluding to, it's just not as impactful. It's just not as powerful.
Yeah.
Right?
And then I think we are pretty good at making the link between the content and their real life situation. And
100%.
that's what sticks.
I love that. So you've got the leadership development side of things, and you've also got the coaching side of things. Is that how you separate it? There's two sides of it, the leadership.
No, I do a little bit more, and I do a lot of sort of consulting, and
Okay.
that consulting is often related around culture transformation.
Mm,
So an organization will say, we want to become the best places to work. We want to, I don't know, whatever their target is. And they say, how do we get actually everybody around the organization pulling in the same direction? So my company name, Align4Profit, is very much how do we align the behaviors of people to make the strategy happen. You
yeah,
spoke earlier on that what's the strategy, but there's still a disconnect. No matter which organization, in what industry, they
yeah.
struggle to get the lowest relevant level of the employees to say, this is my piece in the strategy and how I push it forward. And how do I need to behave every day, Kelly, every day to be able to actually make that strategy happen. So I do a lot of culture transformation too.
Amazing. So, for the listeners to understand at a deeper level, can you walk us through the different offerings and how you work with people? Is it one-on-one coaching? Do you fly out and do, events or workshops with them, excuse me? Is it group coaching? Walk us through that a little bit more.
Well, it's yes and yes to all of that.
Okay.
So there's very little, a few engagements that kind of looks the same. But
Okay.
yes, I do executive coaching and I do this virtually or in person. As I said, I've worked with many countries and that's not always possible to fly out and do that. So virtual is definitely huge. And in fact, when COVID hit, although COVID hit and virtual became the norm, I had already done virtual for probably 10 years before that.
Yeah.
I then went and got master certification on virtual facilitation because there's a way to do that is very different. A lot of the work that I do is actually high performing team work with senior executive teams
Okay.
where I do a process. Sometimes I use Patrick Lencioni's stuff, sometimes I use others, where we can actually get them to sit in a room and be very intimate and vulnerable with each other and come
Yeah.
out of that with a set of actions that they're going to do to actually make a difference. I would also then fly all over the world to do in-person leadership workshops, like India for 3 days or
Wow.
so on.
Not a bad perk of the job, is it?
No, it's got its pluses, definitely. And I love to travel because I'm a curious person, but sometimes that can be tiring.
First.
I'm a homebody too, so I love the best of both worlds I have.
For sure. I love that. Help me understand because it sounds like you do a lot of different things and you can help people across a lot of different facets of leadership,
Yes.
growth, culture, and just becoming, I feel like, more powerful in your professional life, which will seep into your personal life as well. So it really has an impact holistically on somebody's life. But How do you generate these leads? How do you actually bring people into your ecosystem to convert them into clients?
Yeah. So I think I'm blessed that I have a large referral base that for years and years, that's how I lived. I didn't really actively have to hunt for business. But when I go out and hunt for business and through marketing efforts, I think what sets me apart is that I really listen to what is the business need we have to solve. It's
Mm,
very altruistic to say we want to make people better in their personal and business lives, but to what end? And so in the business world where I
mm,
work, is the end is that we want to make strategy happen, right?
yeah.
And I love what you the question you're asking, because the question is absolutely, it is you becoming better wherever you are. I don't think you can learn leadership skills and not transport it to your family life. In fact, I've got hundreds of stories where I told a story about my father, and he's my inspiration, and a mindset story. Maybe I'll share that with you quick. He turned 74 years old, and he said, I'm starting to get aches and pains. And I said to him, he lives in South Africa, so it was a phone call. And I said to him, Dad, you better take it easy. And he said, What? No, a body in motion stays in motion. So I need to get out
Mm,
there and work it.
I
And
love that.
today he is 89 years old. So next year is the big celebration. And just 2 weekends ago, he won a gold for the 100 meters, a gold for long jump, and a gold for triple jump. So,
Wow. That's
right,
amazing.
really inspiration. So I was telling one of the leaders this story, and he went and he's exercised with his son, and he told his son this story. And so it's so cool because look at that. It's impacting his son and this concept of mindset.
I love that. A body in motion stays in motion. I had to write that down as you were saying that because I love that tremendously. So, shifting to the kind of the business aspect of it, once somebody does come in as a lead, let's say through a referral, for example, what are the steps in the sales process they go through to become a client?
It starts with who is the person that comes into it.
Mm,
Um, at the moment, I'm trying to close a sale, but it's very slow because it's the wrong person came in who's got influence for sure, but she's not the final decision maker. I think that people also struggle to communicate the problem statement.
yeah.
They know there's a problem, but they really just don't know what it is. It's going through that to figure out what is their problem and then how can we find a solution to solve it. And I'm a super creative person, so I can see so many paths to solving most challenges. And then it's a question of, are you speaking to the right person? Do they have the budget? Is now the right time? Where is this in the priority list? So the sales cycle typically can be slow.
Yeah.
But again, I'm so blessed that once we get into an organization, we tend to stay in the organization because they're impressed with the results we get. So yeah,
That's huge. And that's probably why you have such a huge referral base, and it speaks volumes to the work that you guys do.
yeah. Like one of my clients, I've worked with them for 17 years.
Wow. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah,
I
it's amazing.
love
Yeah,
that. I'm curious, are you the one in charge of the sales or is there a business
I
development?
am.
Okay. Is that something you eventually want to delegate or?
No, because I think, first of all, I think it's a competence that I have.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think that I can see the solution
Mm,
fairly easily. And because I'm heavily involved, I am a boutique firm. I don't
yeah.
take hundreds of clients.
Yeah.
I'm also a little bit selective. I don't want to do grunt work anymore. So I'm selective in the kind of clients that we accept.
Yeah. Amazing. That's a beautiful spot to be in, to have
Great,
that flexibility, that choice.
great.
If you were to look into the future and think over the next 12 months, what's your vision? What are your top priorities in the company?
Yeah, so from a growth perspective, I want to onboard 5 new clients in the next year. Any size, when I say size of business, because I know that we can grow that. It's really the vision.
What do you feel like are some of the challenges or hurdles that you're going through right now as a business owner, or something you might encounter in the future?
I think it's tough to get people's attention, and leadership in the field I play is such a large field that people have very specific biases about this and what their solution should be. I think
Yeah,
that clients buy a solution that is cheap.
yeah,
They don't quite know how that solution is going to actually get them to the behavior change that they want. There are hundreds of people that say they can coach and say that they can facilitate because everybody thinks they can. But it's actually what is it that takes people over the hurdle. So it's getting
mm,
people's mind space to actually say, okay, let's take a real conversation.
yeah,
I hate it when I get on a sales call and people say, so how much are your services?
right away.
It depends. It entirely depends what you want, how many people, what do you want to learn. More importantly, what is that behavior change that you want to create and why?
Yeah,
I find even sadly, most people say they want leadership development, and when I ask them why, they don't really know.
yeah. No,
So
that's such a great point. That's such a great point. And it can be frustrating when you're on a sales call and the prospects comes in with that frame. But honestly, you're in a good spot because I've done sales for a long time. You're in a good spot because if it truly depends, then that used to always be my rebuttal. Would be like, oh, really, it depends. We don't have a one size fits all solution. So what I'd love to do, Helenie, is go through what your challenges are and just see if we can help. If we can, I can talk about what that looks like. But if not, I'll refer you to somebody else, you know?
maybe I would like for you to explain just your process and what you do. And yes,
In terms of sales. Yeah. So typically it's a discovery call. That's the first thing. And 15-20 minutes max. This could be over the phone, this could be over Zoom. And it really depends if it's an inbound lead or an outbound lead. You mainly deal with inbound leads, which is amazing. You start with the discovery call, and the purpose of that is to see, can we help? And if we can, then we get them onto a 60-minute longer strategy session. And in that strategy session, to give you a quick rundown of the discovery call is super simple. The intro, the frame, basically laying out, hey, this is what we're going to cover. And essentially, if it's B2B, I like to start with the challenges first. What are the challenges that you guys are facing? Maybe you can go a little bit into the impact that those challenges are having on the business. And then what's the goal? Where do you guys really want to take this thing? And by that point, I will have already known, is this somebody that we can actually help? If we can, get them onto a longer Zoom call. And the purpose of that is to do the same thing in terms of fleshing out the challenges, fleshing out the impacts of the challenges professionally and personally, and then going into the goals. But it's much, much deeper than the discovery call. And then from there, we lay out the solution for them. And typically it's one call close, two call close, and then go from there. But the nice thing about the discovery call is that you make sure you get the decision maker on the next call, because if it wasn't them, you could flesh it out right then and there.
yeah. So how do you go about setting up these calls?
What do you mean? Like
Are
the
you, yeah, how do you get the right person in the room?
So that's the leads and marketing side. So that's having the proper offer messaging, that's having the proper ads in place, that's having the proper organic optimized LinkedIn profiles, if you do Facebook profiles, Instagram profiles. And there's a variety of different funnels that we could use. The most effective one that we've had is a paid VSL funnel, and that brings in inbound leads. But it really depends on the offer in the industry and what the best platform for that would look like, if that makes sense.
It does, but I still don't know how you market.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
I've got a marketing company that I'm working with, and they're very specific in their offering. They do
yeah,
cold calls, they do direct mail, they do email campaigns. It's like a laid out process.
yeah.
So,
So
what's your process?
yeah, so those ones that sounds like it's all outbound. We basically focus on the inbound section of it because those are the hottest leads, those are the warmest leads. So meta ads. So you would create ads on Facebook, Instagram, talking specifically to your target customer.
Yeah, that's not my target. My target will not respond through Facebook or
Yeah,
Instagram.
that's one.
They don't.
I
Because they'll respond to through LinkedIn. But
Yeah, that's like I was saying, that's just one aspect of it. It depends on the offer and the messaging, but it really depends. And I'd challenge you on that a little bit because we've have worked with people in your same space that have gotten to multiple millions a year off of this same process. But
right.
I know you have a hard stop to
I
wrap
do.
up. Yeah, to
So
wrap up the
do you want
pod.
to take another call or something, or send me
Yeah,
more information or something like that?
yeah,
Because I
for
do have
sure.
to prep.
No worries. Let's just wrap up the podcast. So that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Thank you so much for making the time today and sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us. To our listeners, if you're inspired, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you're looking to scale your business and enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.